Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Way That I See It. My name is Lucy Superfox, and this is my podcast. So as you can hear, I'm a little bit coldy. I picked up a cold whilst I was away last week. We did not have the best weather in the Amalfi Coast, sad times, but we had a great time. We've come back to some beautiful sun, and that's all I could ask for, was a little bit of break away from normality to really give you that perspective shift to take you into the next phase of your life. And I'm a big believer that your environment is an indicator of where you're going to be going in life. Like, show me your environment and I'll show you what happens next in your life. And I really believe that to be true. And your environment includes where you spend your time, where you work, where you hang out, who you spend that time with, the clothes that you wear, the friends that you have, like all of that falls under that umbrella environment. So when you go away, you change your environment in terms of physically, so where you sleep, where you work, where you eat, where you answer your emails, where you speak to people, the type of people that you speak to. Because you change all of that, what you do is you give yourself that ability to switch from the automatic programming of your subconscious mind, and you give your conscious mind the opportunity to step in and do something, right? So for me, that's all going away is ever about. It's about a change of environment. It's about giving myself that fresh, clean slate to come back to, because I've changed my environment. I've given myself that perspective. So what I've come back really, really thinking about, and really from a, what's the word? Yeah, perspective shift, I guess, is the way I describe it. The perspective shift I've had has been really just reminders of things I already knew. And I think why that's so powerful is that actually when we learn something new, it can feel exciting. It can feel energizing. It can feel like, oh my God, this is it. This is the answer. This is the magic pill. And then very quickly we find boredom in that, or we don't find the solace that we're looking for, right? And so the challenge is that becomes just another thing that we have to think about, another thing that's on the list. And actually what I know to be true is that when we relearn something we already know, that's when it becomes its most powerful. So what I really relearned while I was away and had the ability to have the perspective on was this, that when you change the default settings of your life, you will change your life. So your life currently right now is what you're available for. You are getting what you are currently available for in body, in business, in relationships, in whatever it is. That is what you are programmed for. It's what your default settings are for. So it's not to say you haven't been higher or done better. It's not to say you haven't done lower or done worse, if that's the way you want to put it, right? But right now, on the whole, the average of what you're getting in life is what you are available for. And by default, that is your default setting. So that is what you expect. It's what feels comfortable. It's what feels familiar. Or what my therapist said to me is what feels like home. And we will always recreate things that feel like home when we feel like we're out on that skinny branch. We will always recreate things that make us feel familiar or safe, because actually what we do is we lean into what's safe because it makes us feel good. Now, what I want you to understand the difference, and I've said this before, there is a difference, a very big difference between a comfort zone and a safety zone. Now, when I'm talking about feeling safe in this context, I mean comfort zone, but a safety zone is actually pushing yourself beyond where your central nervous system is ready to go, beyond where your mental or emotional capacity is willing to go. And then what happens is we snap back and we shut down. And this has happened to me a lot over the last couple of years, is that I pushed not only my comfort zone, but my safety zone, because I didn't know the difference. I hadn't done the work. And now I'm really able to discern the difference. And that's allowed me to remind myself of the fact that we always get what we're available for. And what I am currently getting is my default setting. So whether I like it or not is fucking irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that this is what I'm getting. So if I want to be real about where I'm going with life, like what I'm doing next in life, I've got to be real that this is what I'm available for. So if I want to change what happens next, whether it's money, body, business, relationships, I have got to change those default settings. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, you've got to get aware of what they really are, and you've got to get aware of why. And this is where thinking about what feels familiar, what feels comfortable, what feels safe, what feels like home can be useful tools or prompts to helping you do that. So I'm going to give you an example. So what happens with me with money, and it's a really interesting one. I've had some incredible months and I've had some terrible months in my 7 years in business, right? And they have absolutely gone up and down. But overall, we've had I reached a point, and in 2019, 2020, and I've never gone down from there. And why that I believe that is I had a belief system that was very strongly cultivated in that figure. And I was very attached to that figure, and I had a very strong belief about the figure. I knew it was possible for me. I'd seen people do it. I'd seen friends do it. I'd seen my parents do it. So I knew that figure was very much where I was striving. And so when I got to that figure, And this often happens in a lot of industries. We hear the 3K month, the 5K month, the 6K month, or whatever, but it tends to be like the 3, 5, then it's 100 grand a year, which is, it works out about 8.5 grand a month, right? And then we've got the 10K month, and then we've got 15, 20, 25, right? So at the time of recording this, I can tell you I've had a 25K month, and I've obviously done everything in between. Now, 25K month is not where I'm turning right now. That's me being truthful, because I think what was really interesting about that is the fact that I did it, the way that it happened is not a way I can duplicate month on month on month on month, right? Because that was last year in 2022. Yeah. Is not a way I can continue to duplicate. So the reason I tell you that is that just because we've done something once doesn't mean that's the way we want to do it again. So what happens often though is with our default settings is if we've done something before, so maybe you've been a certain dress size before, maybe you've had to hit a certain goal in your business before, maybe you've hit a money goal before, right? That is absolutely evidence you can do it again. But the truth is, if you did it in a way that was sustainable, that you were ready for, that you were actually aligned with, that actually was who you are, an extension of who you'd become, you would have maintained it or grown from it. So if you haven't, then that tells me that's not actually your default setting. So your default setting is not your lowest month or your highest month or your lowest weight or your highest weight or your leanest or your fattest or whatever goal you have, right? It is where you are most commonly living. And so when you then think about, okay, so if this is my default, maybe pick like 4 topics, maybe pick money, body, business, or career, and then relationships, and actually start to think about, okay, what is actually the lowest I'm willing to go with those things? Amanda Francis calls this energetic minimums, but like, what's been the lowest that I've done in those areas, and maybe lowest is, so when I'm talking about lowest, I don't necessarily mean lowest weight, I mean, what is the most negative or the feeling that the low I'm willing to go. The minimum's a great word for that, right? So full credit to Amanda Francis in the book Rich as Fuck for that. But yeah, what's the lowest there? And then what's the highest? So what is the top of what I believe is possible? And there's a difference between believing something is possible cognitively and going, oh yeah, I believe I could do that mathematically, and being like, yeah, man, I could do that. And that's the challenge, is people say all the time, including me, I want that, that's what I want, that's who I am, I know I can do it. And the truth is, actually, just because you cognitively know and understand that you could earn that amount of money, or you could be that weight, or you could have that relationship, if you don't actually deep down believe, and it's not aligned with where your default setting is currently at, your behaviors, your actions, and your energy is still aligned with your default setting. So it's just then a pipe dream. It's just something beyond where you currently are. And this is where there is an element of realism in manifestation, there's an element of realism in creation, right? Where you have to actually get real about where you actually are, because where you actually are is your start point. That's your launch pad. And if you're living constantly in the future manifestation without actually knowing where you are, the challenge is that we never know when we've got there, we're never satisfied, and not necessarily in a good way, but we then actually never get to enjoy the manifestation process because we didn't know where we were in the first place. So when you've got really clear the fact of where you actually are, so what your default settings truly are, I also think it's really useful to dig into why. And I think, recently understanding that ADHD is, I'm 90% sure, through a mixture of professional and self-diagnosis, that the reason I need to know the why for everything is because of ADHD. I need to get to the root cause. I'm like a high questioner, like I need all the answers. I'm also a very intelligent person and I like to know the backstory. But for me, understanding the why those are my default settings has been really game changing for me. So let me give you an example. So let's talk about money. So money for me, no matter how much I earn, there is still a pattern. And the pattern is I go through stages, and this is also connected to ADHD too. It's a dopamine thing. I go through stages where I save loads and loads and loads and loads, and then I spend loads and loads and loads and loads, and then I have to manage my money and budget loads and loads and loads, and then I go make loads and loads and loads, and then I spend loads and loads and loads, and this is like an ongoing cycle. And again, like I said, connected to ADHD, it's a dopamine response. The need to overspend is like a hit, need to save. It's all about hits, right? That's the way I've talked to myself about it. But what I can tell you is that also feels like home to me, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with parents that were very flush with cash, so we'd live really flush, and then maybe they'd overspend a bit too much, or a big tax bill would come in, and then from that tax bill we then have to budget loads. And my parents taught me to budget from a young age. We had budget books. Now there's nothing wrong with that, and actually it's a very practical money tool, but the truth is it wasn't necessarily that, how do I say this, it wasn't nothing in itself intrinsically has meaning. So giving me a budget book didn't make me good with money, right? Because it was part of a bigger picture and bigger puzzle about how money was used and enjoyed and experienced and lived in my household. So the challenge then was that this cycle of money I've got into actually feels a lot like home, because it feels like what I grew up with. It feels like what I'm used to. So what I want you to know is that your default settings often feel like the thing that is just normal. They feel natural, they feel effortless. And that's not like necessarily a good feeling. It doesn't mean it makes you feel happy. It doesn't mean it makes you feel content. What a default setting is, it feels normal. It feels standard. It feels just how it is. And so right now, if there are some, let's say you've got a money goal of a 5K month, and actually right now what feels normal is a 2K month, and you're getting frustrated, there's work to do on your belief system and what that default setting looks like in between. And if you are someone who's listening to this and you're like, oh my God, this is like, then I can send you my free money mindset workshop. You just need to pop me a message on Instagram, pop me a message on email, lucy@lucysuperfox.com, and I will get you the free money mindset workshop. But the point is that once you then understand where your default setting is at, you can stop blaming, complaining, and justifying all the reasons it hasn't happened. You can stop, looking at the practical, because what most people do, especially with money, because it's a numbers game, right, is they go, I'm earning 2K a month, I want 5K a month, that's 3K, so I need to double the amount of hours I'm working. That gets me to 4K a month, and then maybe I need to throw something else into the mix for 1,000. Now, I'm not here to tell you that practical steps aren't required, because they absolutely are. But what I think is also really, really important to know is that no amount of strategy will fix a mindset issue. And that's a great quote by a woman called JJ Lewis. So if you haven't as yet addressed the fact that you have got a money mindset issue, and that is affecting how that shows up in your body or whatever it is, right? There is a mindset reason behind where you are. If there wasn't, you would be where you wanted to be. Right? Because your mindset dictates how you take the action. Your mindset dictates whether you take the action at all. Your mindset dictates whether or not you believe it's possible for you. And so if your mindset isn't lined up with where you actually want to go, no amount of strategy, no amount of practical tips, no amount of logic, no amount of strategy, no amount of will ever change the bigger issue. Because you could work double the hours to earn double the money, but if you still have the same mindset around money that there's never enough, there will be never enough. And the same thing applies to your weight, to your relationships, or your business. So my strong advice, and this is my biggest takeout really from my trip, is to get really real about what your default settings actually are, not what you think they are, not what you'd like them to be, what they actually realistically are, what your bare minimums, like I said, as Amanda Frances says, are. And then look at that and go, fuck, that's nowhere near where I want to be. What do I need to do to shift it? What do I need to do to go change it? So I hope that helped. I hope that's resonated. And if right now for you, money, like I said, drop me an email, drop me a message on Instagram, and I'll send you over my free money mindset workshop. But for me, changing my default settings around money has been something that's been an ongoing game. It's been an ongoing journey. It's one of the reasons the mini money course came in, because in that we talk about minimums and maximums. We talk about some of the things that Amanda Frances shares, but kind of with my real spin on it in terms of my experience. But that concept of default setting, right? That's what I really talk about in the course. So if you want to jump into that, it is currently on £75 a month for 3 months. You can unlock the mini money mindset course, and that is until the end of May. So make sure to jump in. If you're like, right, I'm ready to change my default settings, I'm ready to change what I'm available for with money, then that course is available for you. You can check it out, lucysuperfox.com/money. But I hope that resonated on some level. I hope there was something from that you were like, yes, Luce, this is it. This is like, that's where I'm at. My default settings are not where I want them to be. And if that's the case, then from a money mindset point of view, I strongly recommend reviewing that free money mindset workshop, just like thinking about some of the things I talk about, both the practical and the spiritual, and then looking at how you can apply those. And if you're like, okay, cool, the free tools are amazing, but I want more, I'm ready to deep dive, I'm ready to take action, then you can check out the money mindset course at lucysuperfox.com/money for £75 a month for 3 months. You get access to all 5 modules and all the bonuses, and a 3-part masterclass on transforming your relationship with money. So that was the way that I see it this week. Transform your default settings and you will transform your life. Have a good one, and I'll see you on the next episode.